What is the scariest, unexplainable thing that has happened to you? I think I'm being followed by death, and it is freaking me out. In 2006, I was 12 at the time. My dog escaped when I opened my front door and got hit by a car in front of my eyes. This was at an intersection in New York City, so there were loads of cars. I had to run into the street and signal to the cars with my hands to stop driving so I could get to my dog. In the driver's seat of the car that I had stopped, I saw a young black woman with very short hair, maybe in her early 30s. She was just smiling at me. It made me angry that she saw that I was crying and holding my dying dog and was just smiling. I always thought it was weird, but didn't think about it for another 4 years. In 2010, my father passed away from liver cancer in a hospital in New York. I was in his room when I noticed that he had stopped breathing. I ran out of the room to get someone to help, though the hospital seemed rather empty at 2 a.m. I ran down the hallway to the reception desk of that floor and saw 2 nurses. I said, "My father has stopped breathing. Someone please help." To one of the nurses. One of the nurses got up and started to call some of the doctors. The other nurse just smiled and stayed quiet and looked exactly like the woman I saw in the car 4 years earlier. My heart stopped, but I didn't have time to dwell on it because of the situation. Just imagine everything going quiet and slowing down while I stare at her and her smile widens amidst all of the chaos. It sends fucking shivers down my spine. My grandmother's funeral was this past Thursday. My mother and I were parking our car at the funeral home when we heard our back window shattering as if a bullet had gone through it. I got out of the car to see what had happened, and it turned out that we had backed into a tree which shattered the window. I ran inside the funeral home to see if they could give us a garbage bag and duct tape, and I saw the same woman on the sidewalk in front of the home, wearing a hat, looking at me, walking by, but I didn't have time to stop. Edit. People have said that it is possible that I'm seeing a different woman each time, and that I'm delusional/racist. I have considered this, but I will never forget the face that I saw. The twisted smile that was so out of place is burned into my mind forever and is unmistakably the same woman each time. You live in New York City and keep seeing black women? Death following you is the only explanation. You should speak to her. Not my story, but my best friend's. When he was a kid, he lived in this house that he swore up and down was haunted. Lots of weird moments of feeling like being watched. Stuff turns up missing, then showing up in random places. Well, him and his mom were watching TV one night while his stepdad was at work. They heard a loud thud in the basement and they both assumed it was the father messing around in the basement and he hadn't come up yet. They heard another thud and my friend's mom told him to go downstairs and see WTF his stepdad was doing and why he hadn't come up yet to say hello. So, he walked down the steps and found the tiny family dog was nailed to the ceiling by a claw hammer stuck through its chin. The basement door was locked and no one else was down there. They moved out of the house as soon as they could, and apparently no one has lived there more than a year. He was apparently young enough to block it out of his memory, but it resurfaced when he was in therapy after the army. Gives me chills thinking about it. And yeah, I confirmed with his mom. Our old house was haunted, and I always said my girlfriend was a nutter until I woke up because of a draft and there was a man at the bottom of the bed. Never in my life have I grabbed for my penknife any quicker than that night. Why no one has burned that place down? This happened in 2006 in upstate New York. My friends and I were taking a camping trip upstate. We are from the city, and we arrived at the location at nighttime, so it was very dark. Everyone got off of the buses and we were all standing around outside of the cabins waiting to eat. I saw one of the chaperones, Bert, standing near some trees a few yards from the cabin. Bert is a tall, broad-shouldered guy, and he was wearing a black pea coat. I was with everyone else when I turned my head and I saw him, and he was gesturing for me to come closer. I started running toward him. He continued to gesture and encourage me to come closer to him. My brother, who was with the group, shouted behind me, "Fucking super." I turned around to see him and was about to tell him that I was going to Bert, but when I turned back around, he wasn't there. No one was there. He had vanished. I looked back at my brother and the rest of the group and saw Bert with the other adults. So the question is, who the fuck was that? Clearly it was Ernie. My grandfather was a railway engineer his whole life and we used to play with toy trains all the time when I was young. A week after he died, my favorite train toy came on in the middle of the night. Turned off, no effect, it continues. Took out batteries, still going. My dad literally takes it outside and beats it with a bat. I was young at the time, still runs. He ends up throwing it into the woods and it runs almost until morning. My mom didn't sleep for weeks and it didn't hit me how crazy it was 4 years after. Good job, your dad beat your grandfather's ghost senseless with that bat. What a jerk. I remember me and my family were on holiday in Jamaica when I was a lot younger, probably about 6 or 7. Me and my brother had been playing on the beach when we found what seemed to be a discarded handgun in the bushes next to a small stream. Us being stupid kids decided we should go fire it, so we went to a secluded area in the palms behind the beach. The noise was so loud, and we instantly regretted it when we sprinted from the area we came through to see an elderly man on ground holding his leg. Another man was helping him out when there was a second shot from behind us which hit the second man on the shoulder. After what seemed like an eternity, the police came, and an ambulance helped the 2 men. The first man was apparently an off-duty police officer who'd been minding his own business. Me and my brother felt horrible about the whole situation and confessed what had happened. Unfortunately, when we explained about the second gunshot, we were not believed, and we were to take responsibility for the shooting of the second man, who coincidentally happened to be the deputy of the first man who was shot. Due to our age, we got away with a slap on the wrists and a stern telling off from our parents. I believe both the men involved were okay. TL/DR. I shot the sheriff, but I did not shoot the deputy.